Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Funding Forward Diversifying Revenue for Nonprofit Resiliency. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our event partners and sponsors and our speakers for today who made this conversation possible. We know that many nonprofits, especially in this day of time, are facing challenges, unknown circumstances, and just unsure about how to proceed in the future, how to stay inspired, and how to make actionable strategies to build sustainable funding models, and so on, therefore. So we want to have organizations as part of our chamber that can thrive no matter what's going on. So part of this webinar is to help support you all. And see what we can do from here on out. So my name is Tiana Smith. I'm the Director of Diversity Initiatives and Member Outreach here at the Little Rock Regional Chamber, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. I'm excited to introduce our great panelists for today. We have Ms. Sylvia Blain, CEO of the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, and Ms. Diane Stewart, the Executive Director of the Watershed Human and Community Development Agency. So to begin, I'd like to share a moment when you all realized that your organization needed to diversify funding, introduce yourself, share a little bit of your story. So if Ms. Blain, if you could start first.
Okay. All right. Hey there. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that lovely introduction. So I'm happy to be here to have this important and timely discussion with you. We know that the nonprofit sector has seen quite a lot of turmoil over the last few months. I've served in leadership roles in several small nonprofits, each of them experiencing their own set of financial stresses over the years. And it is in those roles that I learned the most about being creative in fundraising and the value of diversified funding streams. I've been with the Hunger Relief Alliance for about a year and a half. And shortly after accepting the position, I began assessing our programs, our budgets, and our funding streams to better understand the ebbs and flows of income and see where we could be more efficient and resilient. The Alliance, like many organizations dealing with basic human services during the pandemic, took advantage of the many funding opportunities that were available to strengthen our social safety net. With the influx of federal dollars, some of it administered by the state governments, came programmatic growth. Government funding, particularly federal funding, tends to come with a lot more zeros than foundational funds do, or even state and local funding. That can be a powerful tool in any nonprofit arsenal that wants to move their mission forward. But it puts your organization at risk of losing critical programs if they have a single source of funding. And that was the case with one of our largest programs. Within the first few months of coming into the organization, I let it be known that I had concerns about an imbalance in our funding streams that gave us far too much exposure to political winds. My development and program teams have been working to diversify our funding streams over the last year in order to minimize our risk of programmatic pauses. So it was in the last year that I realized that we needed to be less exposed to the political winds.
Thank you, Ms. Blain, for that story and a little bit of explanation of you and your background, your history. Ms. Diane, if you can go ahead and give a little bit of your story and when you realized that it's time to diversify the revenue for Watershed.
Good morning. My name is Diane Stewart. I am very new to this procedure here regarding the watershed. I took over as the executive director 2 years ago, come September the 20th, when my husband transitioned over. So she may not have as much knowledge, but I will try my best. There was a moment several years back when we were preparing our annual holiday food and toy baskets. And if you guys know anything about the watershed, you know that we do a tremendous job during the holiday season. Especially, we do it every year. I mean, all during the year, but that's one of our big giveaways. And something that's the program that's been beloved. It's a tradition of the watershed for decades. But that year, one of our major donors had to cut back unexpectedly, and it left a big hole in our budget. We had thousands of families counting on us, and suddenly we weren't sure we could deliver. That was a wake-up call. We realized we were relying too heavily on a few funding sources, and that put not only our programs at risk, but also our mission. That's when we started to explore a more diverse funding strategy. We began reaching out to local businesses for partnerships, applied for more state and federal grants, and even trained some of our staff to write mini grants. We also invited individuals from the community to become monthly givers, emphasizing that small, consistent support adds up in a big way. And that's what happened. We now have a mix of private donors, public funds, faith-based support, and community fundraising events. It was a difficult shift, but it made us stronger and more sustainable. And that's our story.
Okay, well, thank you guys both for those powerful answers and a moment to thank you all for being here again on this webinar, being a great panelist for this discussion. As I mentioned before, we don't want to talk about solutions because there isn't one right now. We do want to get the conversation started because this is an important topic for all of us right now, especially with the Chamber. We are also a nonprofit. So we have quite a few nonprofit superstars that are also in the audience of this webinar for the panelists, in case you didn't know. I just want to take a moment to shout out a few that you may recognize. And with that being said, much of our audience are no strangers to the real ins and outs of nonprofit business. We have Mr. Anthony with City Connections, Compassionately Connected for Veterans with Miss Michelle Mothershed, Harmony Health Clinic, and a bunch of others that are been doing this for a long time and they have a lot of great experience. So I'd like to ask a few questions to dig deeper into some of y'all's strategies. Audience members, you're welcome to share your insights, your questions, and helpful advice in the chat, and we will get to the questions towards the end with our Q&A session. So what's one funding mistakes that nonprofits should avoid, Miss Diane, and then Miss Blain?
All right. I think both Ms. Blain and I just kind of alluded to that as far as being diversified. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't rely too much on a single funder, whether that's a grant or a donor or a government contract. That can be risky when you put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify early, even if it feels small. That way, if one stream dries up, your mission doesn't go with it. So try not to try to keep your funding sources diversified, as we stated earlier.
Right. And I will mirror what Ms. Stewart has said, that critical programs have to have a diversified funding stream in order to ensure their sustainability. If you rely on a single source of funding for a core program and that source of funding disappears or diminishes for any number of reasons, your ability to service your core mission could be at stake. So as mentioned, as Ms. Stewart mentioned, diversifying early, but plan ahead. Make sure that you are setting up those streams of funding based on your programmatic needs before you start that program, if it's at all possible.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you. And so the next question is, how do you maintain morale and inspire your team when money is tight? Ms. Blaine, you can start us off first.
Okay. Truthfully, I start with honesty. I am open with my team about if there are any funding issues or structural issues. We also do things as a team, and I think Ms. Stewart mentioned this in her opening. Once we knew that we were going to be facing some funding difficulties on some of our core programs here at the Alliance, I set up training at our local library, which was free for grant research, and to help our team members feel like they're a part of the solution. I think being honest and open, and having your staff members, whether you have a small staff or a large staff, be a part of the solution is helpful, and it makes them feel less I don't want to use the word hopeless, but when there are funding concerns, then you end up having people that are worried about their jobs or their programmatic sustainability. And I think you have to be honest with people and then ask them to be a part of the solution.
I agree totally with Ms. Blain. One of the things is I found this question real interesting in the fact that recently, because I'm new to the watershed, I have staff people that's been here 40 years and the lease is 11. So I went around and asked them myself, I'm like, okay, why are you still here? What's motivating you to stay here? Um, and so that goes back to our why. When resources are stretched thin, we focus on the impact we are making. And so we share stories of our lives we've touched, like family who stayed warm through our utility program, or the elder person who received a fan in the heat. We also celebrate small wins and lean into each other. Prayer, community, and purpose have always kept the watershed going, and they keep our team motivated when the dollars are low. And we are also inspired by the founder, Hezekiah's legacy. That's one of love, faith, compassion, and service to others. So that's how we keep our morale up, trying to make sure that we keep the integrity of the watershed going. And also remember who we're serving and that we are servants. And those persons, when they come to us, they're hurting and they're in need. And so we have to show compassion, love, and just serve the need if we have the capacity to serve the need.
I'd like
Thank
to add one thing to that.
you.
If you can get your team, for us, we're a statewide organization, and we're not all necessarily involved in direct service. So sometimes when you have people that are not involved in direct service, and by that I mean they may be grant writing or doing our communications and not necessarily serving an individual, we try to get people into the environments where they can do that and they can connect with our mission. And that kind of mirrors what Mrs. Stewart was saying, but help everyone remember the why, because sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that when crisis strikes.
Right. Thank you both. Yeah, the why is very important, not only to your work and to your nonprofit mission, but also in other parts of your life as well, right? So your why goes to why you get up in the morning, why you do what you do in your personal life. And then you relay that over, especially in the nonprofit sector when you work here, of why you want to continue to be a servant, like Ms. Stewart mentioned, why you want to continue to be in the community and be of service. So the next question is, what advice would you give to nonprofits just starting out, trying to figure out how funding resilience works? Ms. Diane.
Um, Start building your relationships early, not just with funders, but with your community as well. Trying to find out your local support in the foundation, develop a clear story about the impact you're making, and 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 define the problem you're trying to solve, where you want your service to impact, and the outcome of what that service is going to, be working towards. And then that way you can communicate that to others that can be a part of that process. Be creative, mix grants, donations, events, and partnerships, and always keep your eyes open for new opportunities. Even when things seem like they're stable, you got to be still searching for new opportunities to sustain your programs. That's my assessment.
Um, I think as a leader, it's important to be continually assessing your risks and your blind spots to ensure that you are as prepared as you can be when crisis strikes. Um, it's not a matter of if, but when you will face financial crisis at some point in a nonprofit. I wish that was not true.
I do too.
Yeah, all nonprofits and businesses experience ebbs and flows. Funding resilience in nonprofits refers to an organization's ability to maintain financial stability and adapt when funding sources shift or decline. You should create a plan for building multiple funding sources, which is something we've mentioned a few times. But most importantly, you need to create reserves. And that can sound very, very difficult, just like it is in your personal budget to put money into savings. You should create reserves that you can rely on. You should build your organization's capacity through capacity building grants. So sometimes you don't have the money, but you have the capacity by building out your resources. In our world, a lot of times that means food storage and food delivery, or so build up your resources so that you can continue to offer those services and be more stable. Those kind of things strengthen your team and your infrastructure, and rather than just strengthening your programs. You also have to be flexible and willing to make difficult decisions, like limiting travel, or in some cases, reducing staffing levels. The both of us have said this before, but I cannot stress it enough. Do not put all of your funding eggs into one basket.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. What's one creative way your nonprofit has engaged the community to raise funds and increase clientele, get more engaged with your margin of people?
Is that me or Miss Blain?
Miss Blain, thank you.
Okay, I'll start out here. I inherited, there's a million great ways to raise funds creatively for all sizes of organizations. Do a 24-hour fundraiser where you set a goal and you make it very public and people kind of compete, to send in money. Make it an easily accessible goal. You can, I had one colleague who sent out fundraising asks on donors' birthdays, so that they were sending one out almost every day, but it was just to a handful of people. And that was it was a happy birthday, and it showed that you were paying attention to them as a person, and really asked for help. But here at the Alliance, we have one that I inherited. It was the brainchild of my predecessor, Kathy Webb, and it's brilliant. It's called Serving Up Solutions. And it's a semi-formal event that happens annually, and it brings together Arkansas legislators, corporate and community entities, nonprofit organizations, and individuals by selling sponsorships for tables at a semi-formal event. And those tables are waited on by our Arkansas legislators. And so what that does is it allows our corporate and individual community members to have access in a casual environment that's fun to their legislators, so they can have individual conversations with them. So that's wonderful. The legislators compete for tips. And they're already very competitive people. They're loud about it. They're running around having fun, competing for tips. We put little QR codes on their jackets, so they don't have to be waiting on your table. If somebody just wants to give them money, they can do it with a QR code. So that in itself is a wonderful way. So we get the sponsorship money. From the tables, we get we raise funds through the competing with tips, but also that tip money then goes into a fund that we pass on to our food banks and food pantries around the state. And the way that we do that is we reach back out to those legislators and we ask them to nominate a food bank or a food pantry in their district to get that money. So after the event, there's another way for us to make contact with that legislator and that food pantry or that food bank or whatever program it is. Sometimes it's a school or a church. And then we invite the legislator out so that we can then give that check to that organization, and so that they get a photograph and a mention in their local media. So it is a multi-point event that is absolutely brilliant, and it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. It happens every June. And so to me, it's very creative. It brings together fundraising and lobbying and advocacy, and fun. It's a culinary event as well. So anyway, that's a great one, and I cannot take any credit for it.
Thank
Good.
you. That sounds really fun.
It's
Miss
great.
Blaine.
Sounds really fun. One of the first one that you said about the birthday, I think I'm going to take that idea and put it down here at the Watershed, okay?
I like the making them compete for tips add-on. That sounds really cool.
Oh, that's their banquet thing. I just love the idea about sitting out birthdays. But okay, so here at the Watershed, we too do banquets, annual banquets, where we have sponsors that come in and sponsor tables and that event. So that's kind of similar to what Ms. Blain said is regarding having banquet sponsors. But one of my favorite events is our Community Service Day Festival, where local artists and churches and businesses come together and offer services, and they do we do entertainment, and they make donations, and we have live music, we have food trucks, we resume building workshops, resume workshops, and even free health screenings. It brings in funds and awareness to what we're all about and what we have to offer here at the Watershed. But more importantly, it brings people together, neighbors, helping neighbors. That's what the Watershed is all about. And also, we changed it from Service Day Festival. We started celebrating it on October the 14th, which is Hezekiah's birthday. And the month that the Watershed was started in October, and this is our 40, in October, we'll be 47 years old. The Watershed organization will be. So if you don't have anything to do on that Tuesday, October the 14th, come out here and help us celebrate Hezekiah's birthday, which is a Service Day Festival. That's it for as far as what we do to raise funds here at the Watershed.
Okay, well, thank you both for those creative aspects. I really do enjoy volunteering and finding ways to promote both of you all's events. And of course, everyone else in the chat, I'm sure they have some events as well that they would like to share. Feel free to put those in there as well if you'd like to highlight those. Are there tools, platforms, or networks that you recommend for nonprofits seeking new funding opportunities? Ms. Blaine.
Make sure I'm off mute. Yes, I think it's important to use, there's a lot of digital tools out there. Most of them come with a cost. I realize that, but it's very important to keep track of your fundraising, and have an ability to reach out to people, to donors in an efficient way. When I first started in the nonprofit world many years ago, I was using, Excel spreadsheets, and while they work, it's very, very cumbersome and really easy to lose track of how often you're speaking to people, what those conversations were about. So I think it's important to use a CRM platform or customer relations management tool, to better monitor your fundraising goals and keep track of your donations and your grants and your events. Most of them will even manage ticket sales and that sort of thing for you. And some of them will manage volunteer hours. So, there's a lot of great tools out there. If your organization has the budget, and this is a big if because it can be very expensive, but hire a fundraising consultant to evaluate your annual fundraising plan and help you improve to meet your needs and set reasonable and achievable goals. I used to set unreasonable, unachievable goals because I didn't have, and then feel like I was failing because I didn't have the best full understanding of what my donor base was capable of. And so that takes education and it takes tools and sometimes a consultant to teach you how to do that. And so you have to admit what you don't know, and rely on those that do have those skills to help you through that. I feel a lot more knowledgeable now and at this level, but there's just so much I still don't know about the fundraising world, and I'm always learning a lot. I would say my first foray into fundraising was haphazard as best, and I often, if you set your goals too high, you can feel defeated. And so I think it's important to be reasonable and set achievable goals. If you have some funds and you want to use a low-cost CRM, there's a couple that are low-cost, easy entry. One of them is Give Butter. They have actually part of a free platform, but as you scale up, it'll cost some. Little Green Light is also a good one that's for small organizations that can scale with you. They charge you by the number of donors that you have, not how much, not your budget. So as your donor base grows, then your monthly cost will grow. But those are both really easy to use, low cost CRM for smaller organizations. And then there's the big ones, there's Neon and there's, Blackbot and all kinds of other Salesforce, the bigger ones that come with a much larger cost, but have a lot more amenity and more tools and things to use. You can research grants. I mentioned earlier we went to our local library. If you're in Central Arkansas, a lot of the larger libraries have this, so you should call no matter where you are in the state. If you're in Central Arkansas, I am not prepared enough to have her name with me, but there is a resource librarian that will offer training, individual or for your staff, on how to use their grant research tools at the library. And I can tell you, they have a very extensive grant research tool that can be very, very useful for finding sources of funding. And that training took us maybe an hour. And then you have that resource. Now you have to be at a library to utilize it, but it sure is worth it to go once a month to do your grant research, I think, and not have to pay that $10,000 to $15,000 a year subscription fee for that grant research tool. That the library is taking care of that for you. Grant Station, if you are a member of TechSoup, you should utilize, there's a Grant Station discount that I think allows you to purchase it for as low as about $100 a year, up to about $160 a year, depending on when you're able to get in on that discount. TechSoup is another really great nonprofit tool. Join TechSoup for free, and it opens up a lot of discount services to you on software, hardware, and that sort of thing. You can buy computers, you can get, your QuickBooks, your Adobe, a lot of those things at a deeply discounted rate. And again, your local library, don't overlook it. We are lucky here in Central Arkansas to have the Central Arkansas Library System as a resource, but we have some great libraries around the state, and I urge you to reach out to them to find out what their resources are. And regularly check grants.gov, Grant Gopher, and don't discount LinkedIn for finding funding sources. I find lots of grants on LinkedIn by following groups that are relevant to the work that I do. And I think for now, that's what I've got for you on tools and platforms.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a whole host of information. I love
I
TechSoup,
don't
and of
even need to
course,
say anything.
CALS is amazing.
I don't even need to say anything regarding platforms today. She's given it all. I would say definitely we've had success with Grant Station, which Ms. Blain mentioned. Also, you can check out the foundation directory online for researching grants and for community fundraising. She mentioned Give Better. That's a good one. Mighty Cause. And both of those are user friendly and they're cost effective, as Ms. Blain already mentioned. And I'll just like to add one of the things that Ms. Blain has said was that you need to make sure try to your best to have someone that's on your board or who's supporting your organization that can fill in where you're lacking. So that would be a platform or some network they can use. Don't underestimate your local chambers of commerce or your nonprofit alliances. Connecting with those networks can open doors and participation and sponsors you don't know that were there. And I just took down the library, so I'll check on that myself too. But she gave it all.
Well, and I'm happy to share, if you're here in Central Arkansas, I'm happy to share my resource at Central Arkansas so that you can reach out directly. They did a wonderful job of training us. We brought in our own laptops, but you didn't have to. They could provide them if you needed to. But in making sure my entire team knew how to utilize the tools there at the library, and they were grateful that we asked. I don't think enough organizations reach out and use that resource. They were happy to be doing it and told us they would be, I told them we would be sharing that with all of our pantries in the area. So I
Okay.
think it's important. Use it or lose it.
Well, thank you both. That was really great. And I tried to take down some notes as well. As I mentioned, so some other resources I want to make sure to mention that are not directly funding related, but just other things that would be helpful. Um, of course, UA Little Rock has a center for nonprofit organizations. They share community and university resources catered to you. Just a quick highlight for City Connections. They have a community focused luncheon on the second Thursday of every month where people can come and fellowship together and actively introduce you to people that are doing great things in the community. We have the collaboration room as well with the City Connections. We have the Nonprofit Learning Lab, which is also an online platform where they have some great free resources on there. Of course, some of it does ask for membership, but a lot of the resources on there are free and really great. They have some great guidebooks, some activity sheets, some other webinars for you all to check out. And then I also want to make sure that I mention um, the Clean School of Public Service and also UA Little Rock are both great resources for if your organization is interested in want to research how to improve yourself, how to do market research into the clients that you're trying to serve. They offer great ways to partner with them and kind of further your mission and figure out where to go next and strategy. And then last, the biggest resource that we all can have is for you all to support each other. There's a lot of resources in Central Arkansas, not only in Central Arkansas, but in Arkansas in general. So if we could find more ways to connect together, work together, share resources, I believe we all can be our biggest cheerleaders. So we're going to move into the lightning round in the Q&A session. In 60 seconds or less, what is your best tip for nonprofits trying to diversify funding right now? And while they are answering, we'd like for everyone in the chat to type in your questions and then we'll read them aloud and direct them to the panelists. And please keep your questions as clear as concise as you can. And with that, Ms. Blain, if you could please start us off with your 60-second best tip right now.
Please.
Oh, I think you're muted. I'm sorry.
I mute myself, sorry. So take an honest look, and I want to highlight the word honest. Take an honest look at your current annual fundraising plan. And if you don't have an annual fundraising plan, put it on paper. What is it you're doing? Put it down by month, put it down by week, by quarter, however you want to do it. Take an honest look at your annual fundraising plan and see where you are lacking and set a goal. Do you have 3 events a year but no grant writing? Add a grant writing goal. Do you have several core sources of grant funding but no direct mail campaign? Add one. I think assessing your fundraising goal and setting new goals for the upcoming year is probably the most important thing you can do right now.
Okay, and me, I'm Diane Stewart. Think local and long term. Build relationships in your own backyard with churches, schools, businesses, and individuals. Don't wait for a crisis to start diversifying. Even $10 a month donation matters. Doesn't matter as long as you're getting those dollars in there. Keep your message clear, your mission front and center, and always say thank you. That's how you build a sustainable future. 60 seconds is up.
Okay, well, thank you both. You did a great job. So we're going to go into a few Q&A, and I'll go ahead and read some of the chat. People are also interested in collaborating and working with you both. So if you need any connections after this, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to make an introduction to you both so you all can collaborate and find synergies. Another comment in the chat from Ms. Latrina Robson Simmons Bank, seek donations from banks, Community Reinvestment Act, for example. So one of the questions that we have is, what advice do you have for building trust with the communities that you serve? Ms. Diane, if you'd like to go first.
No.
how do you build trust with the people that come and ask you for help or maybe have a harder time coming in
One
and
of the things that
asking for resources?
one of the things I do, as I stated earlier, I've just started with this with the watershed at this level. Um, my background was always at the church because my husband was a pastor. But anyway, I'm learning myself, and one of the things that I've done, I think as Blaine said it earlier, I've asked our clients that come in, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? So that I take that survey and see what we need to do here at the watershed to make things better. That's how we connect with our clients and making sure you're not going to be able to serve everybody their needs. And so when you find out what your niche is, where you're going to be, what you're going to be, how you're going to be serving. Like here at the watershed, we do utility service, we do uh, food, we do clothing, we do job search. So if that's our niche, and someone come in for rental assistance, we try to build a relationship with those organizations that are actually doing rental assistance. So that's one of the strategies that I've come in and try to make sure that we're serving the needs that we have, that we offer here at the watershed with integrity and making sure that we are, if we don't, if we can't help you, that we can have a referral system here that we can refer you to another organization. Did I answer your question? I don't think I
You
did.
did, you did. And to summarize for everyone, basically what you were saying is find your niche, make sure you evaluate and take extra care into your evaluations to figure out what's best for your community and to make sure that you're being open-minded.
Thank you. You put that excellent.
Ms. Blaine,
Was this build, it's, repeat the question, is how do we build trust
how do
in
you
the
build
people that we
trust with the
serve?
communities that you serve?
So the Alliance, as I mentioned before, we have a couple of programs that do direct service in that, like we run a SNAP outreach department that handles and manages a call center. Sorry for the stuttering. And they, people do call in and we deal with them directly. And in that case, we show compassion. We check on them. We follow up to find out if we have met their needs. And if their needs are not met, then similarly, we suggest wraparound services or other organizations that might be able to meet their needs if we cannot. But for the most part, the Alliance's clients are food banks and food pantries. And so, because we're a membership organization, not unlike kind of the chamber in that way. And so we make sure, and we're actually working on this. This is one of our goals for the upcoming year is to do a better job of supporting our pantries and our food banks. And so we survey, we find out what it is that they need, and we develop programs to help them better serve their communities. And I think that's the most important part. We believe that a lot of our social issues can be solved at a community level, at least in crisis mode. And so I think building those relationships at the community level with our food banks and food pantries is really important. And so I don't know if I answered your question either, but
No, you did. Thank you.
I just like to share this with Ms. Blaine. Today, the watershed is passing out food boxes. Well, our goal is to give out 200 food boxes today. So,
fantastic.
thank you for that.
Yeah, yes.
We are a member.
I know, and you know what? You'll hear from us. We really are in the next year or two. We're putting a big focus on growing out our membership support services, and so you'll hear more from us. You know.
I love to see the collaboration. And of course, I think one thing that you both mentioned is making sure that you're being reachable, that you're being accessible to everyone and finding different ways to reach that audience. Another question that someone has is what advice or motivation do you have for new people that are entering nonprofit professionals that are trying to work their way up in leadership or working their way up to having a bigger nonprofit?
Um, I guess I can start with this. I think it's really important to put yourself out there. Be honest about the skills that you need to develop and work on developing them. There's a lot of resources online. There are here at UALR. I know I'm not supposed to say it's UALR anymore, I don't think, but and our local universities have resources that are not necessarily just a 2-year or a 4-year program. There are certifications. So there are some sacrifice, but put yourself out there. I do not have, a PhD or a master's in nonprofit management. I have come up doing the work and working in the community. So try to, for the experience that you don't have, try to put yourself in a position to get that experience. For instance, I had been an executive director of a nonprofit, of small nonprofits for many years, but I did not have membership management experience. I had none of that. And so I found a part-time position with a local statewide organization several years ago that needed someone to do that. They needed my nonprofit experience. I needed their membership management task. And so I stepped up. I worked a second job while doing another job in order to learn that. And so I think, look for opportunities and take them. That's, and put yourself out there.
Thank you. Ms. Diane, I know you mentioned a couple of times that you are newer to your executive director position. So what are some things that you learned that helped you as you're continuing this position?
Um, there's only 4 staff people here, so I have relied very heavily on their knowledge and the fact that they've worked with Hezekiah for many, many, many years. Like I said, we have one gentleman here who's been here 40 years. So when I first came in, my background was in business and then doing the church work, and I did the feeding program for the children. In other words, the DHS program. So I was never involved very heavily here at the Watershed and with the organization here. So I relied heavily upon the staff that has been here all these years. And then, like Ms. Blain said, I had to bring in people that I knew that I could rely on. I'm not an attorney, so I know I'm on my board. I need to have an attorney. I'm not financially budgeting wise, so I know on my board I need to have those type of persons. I need to surround myself with the expertise as I begin to learn the process of what this organization is all about and how to keep sustain the organization. Like I said, we're in our 47th year. How many grassroots organizations can you say been in here 47 years? But that's because of the ongoing service and the integrity and the commitment to the community that was established. So for myself, I'm having to go pick up all these tools that we have mentioned, take advantage of them, and and educate myself in this area of service.
It,
I really think you really got to surround yourself with people who are more that's knowledgeable in areas that you're weak in. You really do have to do that, and
yes.
you have to make yourself available to learn. You just can't say okay, but you got to be out there to be willing to. If you decide you want to be in a nonprofit organization, you really got to find out what you want to offer the community. Find out if it's if it's job placement or working with veterans or whatever it is. You need to make sure that you reach out to that group, find out what it is that's needed in the community, because a lot of organizations are just competing for the same dollars sometimes. So make your niche where is find out in the community what's needed, and go for that, and then train yourself and uh, uh, make yourself available to that cause.
And I'd like to add something that we didn't talk much about. We maybe in passing mentioned partnerships, but partnerships are important both in achieving your mission. So, partner with other organizations or community groups that can fill in where you don't have the resources. And you believe it or not, when you are fundraising or grant writing in particular, those multi-level partnerships will bring in more money. Larger organizations and foundations want to fund groups that are collaborative, not insular. And those partnerships will help make the program and the impact more sustainable. And so I think it's really important to build those partnerships. You can learn from one another as well on how to do. And lastly, Diane mentioned this a little bit, but when we're talking about having to teach yourself things, everything from how to use your CRM, how to use your financial management tools, it takes time to learn those. And one of the things that I struggle with every single day is setting aside the time to learn. Because we are all, especially in the nonprofit world, we're all doers. We got to be busy. We got to have our hands dirty at all times, getting things done. If you don't stop to read, to listen, to write, you're doing yourself and your organization a disservice. And I'm telling you this as much as I'm telling myself this, but it's an important thing to do.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Yes, well, thank you both. I would say being a LRSD byproduct of public education, one thing that they've always taught us, starting from elementary all the way up, is to continue to be a lifelong learner in all aspects of your life. And so I do want to make sure I recognize the important thing that both of you all said of either when you figure out your gaps as step one, and then two, you either learn in those gaps or you outsource. And that's very important to figure out how to pivot in both of those avenues. And that's one thing that we tell not only nonprofits, but also small business owners. Sometimes you're only good at the service or the products, and everything else you outsource and do the best that you can. And so just to wrap up, one last question. Of course, you all mentioned partnerships. What's one quick tip that you work on to build those authentic relationships instead of having one-time transactions? Ms. Diane, if you'd like to go first, you can.
Ms. Blain, go first.
Okay. I think just like you build any relationship, you have to prioritize it. You have to reach out. You have to let folks know that, I do it in very personal ways. And I don't, if I've been working with somebody in a professional manner and I'm trying to build that relationship, I build on the last conversation we had. I'll reach out and say, hey, I read this article. I was thinking of that conversation we had when we spoke. Share the article and say, hey, if you'd love to have coffee. I believe you make the best relationships by sitting down and having real human conversations with people, understanding, particularly if we're talking about donors or funders, what is their why? Not just what is yours. Why are you interested in helping us with this work? Let me tell you what new programs I have going, and if any of this piques your interest, then let me know. I'm not necessarily always making an ask. I just want to be able to build those relationships so that folks know that we're here, we're doing the work, and when they have funders or they have money that comes across their desk that they want to spend on something, and they say, you know what, we talked about this the last time we spoke. I'm going to give her a call. And to me, that those have been the most authentic relationships. I'm also not the development director at my organization. So, I only have to have coffee. I don't have to make the ask, but I do think that that's important. I think it's an important thing to do.
Oh, well, right now I'm just trying to sustain the relationships that are already built.
Right.
What I found when I first came aboard and started taking over was that I hate to keep referring back to Hezekiah, but Hezekiah had built some tremendous relationships. Those of you who are on here, you guys are familiar with him, and y'all know that. So my job was to make sure that people realized that I wasn't going to come in and dismantle anything, that we were going to try to keep everything intact and what I keep telling the staff here is that we need to keep the integrity of the watershed intact. We need to make sure that what was sustainable, what was being done prior to his transitioning over, that we continue to do that. We continue to love on our clients. We continue to be compassionate, but we also still have to keep those relationships that was built with those partners to make sure that they realize that we're still doing the same thing the funds are still being utilized the same way, and we're still trying to make sure that we manage the same way. So that's mine.
Well, thank you. And one more thing that I like to add, one thing that many people either don't know about me or are learning is that I'm in grad school for mass communication and public relations. And so what that entails is focusing on, of course, public relations, communication strategies, but also nonprofits because they work directly into each other. So one thing I've learned besides the communication part of it is how to make that human touch, how to relate to the public, of course. And so one thing I want to add is to make sure, of course, maintaining relationships, having those one-on-ones, but also inviting people to come out and see your mission in action, invite them to an event, invite them to volunteer, invite them to come and see your space or see you doing community service out in the public so they can actually be ingrained and buy into everything that you have going on.
And I want to just mention that I don't think we touched on volunteers. I've
Mhm.
mentioned that we only have 4 staff persons here at the Watershed. So to get the work done that we do here, we have to rely on in-kind volunteers. And so we do have a lot of people that do come into the Watershed to assist us. Like today, we're giving out 200 food boxes. 4 staff people can't answer the phone, do everything else. And so we have to have that volunteer service to come in and help us. So yeah, we rely heavily on our volunteers. And as I mentioned earlier, we do like over 2,000 2 or 3,000, well, actually it's 6,000 and something plus during the Christmas holidays when it comes to food boxes. Because we just don't give food boxes here in Little Rock. We do the whole state if we can. But we have a lot of churches that we send food back to, like McGee or CrossFit or Monticello. So we couldn't do that with 4 staff people unless we had our volunteers to come in and help us to put those boxes together. So yes, we definitely utilize volunteers here at the Watershed. And I'm pretty sure at the food bank too. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say to add to that, and not that you look at everyone as a transaction. I don't want to insinuate that, but volunteers are the ones that get closest to your mission, and they are the most likely to donate, even in small amounts. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I consider volunteer development actual fundraising and development as well. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And thank you so much to both of you all for all of your insights and all of your advice for today. Congratulations to you both on also sustaining great legacies within your own nonprofits, growing essential needs in the community, and of course, being leadership pillars for this kind of work. So we do appreciate you all taking the time out to be here with us. Thank you also to the audience for joining us. Before you all go, a replay of today's webinar will be available on the Little Rock Regional Chamber's YouTube channel. So if you'd like a copy of that, you're welcome to go see that. If you'd like a copy emailed to you, you can reach out to me and I'm happy to get that to you as well. We also encourage you to come out to join us on a few other conversations. The next one coming up is the Women Mean Business panel on September 23rd from 11:30 to 1 here at the Little Rock Chamber. We'll have Ms. Tamika Moore as the moderator, and then we'll have 3 great entrepreneurs in 3 different industries who will talk about, of course, the struggles that women go through in the day-to-day and how they manage that with being entrepreneur, how they manage that with being community members, being advocates for everything going on in the community, especially small business resources. So we have Dr. Toshi. She owns the HealthWise Clinic and Wellness Center in Jefferson County. Ms. Darshita Desai, she owns Foursquare Corner Store and River Market Cafe. She's been a River Market small business owner for over 20 years, so she knows everything about how to be sustainable, and especially in a place of high rent like downtown. And then we have Ms. Gina Smith. She owns Rock Region Consulting, which is a third outsourced HR consulting company, and she has great resources as well to help people get their business growing. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested. Feel free to check out the Little Rock Regional Chamber website for all of those events. Next up, we also have the 43rd Annual Minority Business Awards Luncheon, which is our biggest event of the month for Multicultural Month Midweek. That will be on September 25th from 11:30 to 1 at the Great Mosaic Templars Culture Center. And lastly, if you're a chamber member, we'd love for you to come out to a Final Friday at American Taekwondo Association on that Friday, which is the 26th. And also September 30th, we will be honoring our Legacy Award winner, Mr. Sammy, with a luncheon at Star of India. Besides that, of course, the nonprofits in the room, of course, I'm sure all of you are already registered for Serve the Rock. If not, please register today. That will be Thursday, October 2nd. We are very excited about it. This is a family-friendly event that we've changed here to Dickie Stevens. Invite all of your clients, your volunteers, your board to come out and see you all in action, representing your company. Invite your friends, invite other family members to come and indulge in the food and all the activities and visit with other nonprofits that would be there. Try to find a way to collaborate and bring synergies there. For more information, feel free to visit littlerockchamber.com as well. Here's my information. Again, I'm Tiana Smith, the Little Rock Regional Chamber. Here's my email and my phone number. And thank you all for joining us, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.